Charlotte Soccer Show, John Hayes, Danny Brams, and Danny, it's been a wild week for Charlotte FC. I don't know what's happened. I'm out of town right now. I'm in Tampa, Florida, and I've been busy for the last 48 hours or so. So where do we start?
I got to start with Cat Stevens, baby. Ooh, Johnny, Johnny, it's a wild world. It's hard to get by without a designated player or two. Yeah, we lost two DPs, Johnny. It's a wild world out there, and Charlotte FC's roster is a lot thinner than it was 24 hours ago because arrivederci and adios, Carol and Camille. No longer are you members of the team. Carroll technically is loaned out, but he's never coming back. So, yeah, the boys are gone. The great Polish exodus of 2024, Swiderski, Jozwiak, Sobaczynski, and Pareva all gone. And we haven't brought anyone in, John, so it's really weird. The window's closed. The window has slammed shut in England and Italy and France and Germany and Spain and other locales. It's still open in some smaller leagues and stuff like that, but it's obviously much harder to get guys. We're now looking more towards like free agent pool and guys that are surplus to requirements. I actually have one hot name that I would love to see come in, who's not technically a free agent yet, but yeah, Charlotte's kind of in a state of flux. It's a wild week. We've said goodbye to our talisman, our first ever DP, a guy that was much beloved but also much hated. There was Carroll had his detractors for sure. And then there's Camille, who it's almost like Carroll had about like 80% love, 20% hate. And then there's Camille, who maybe had like the flip side of that, 20-80. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But it's weird. Like, it just, what do we think about a lot of times with Charlotte FC as a new club, as a 2-year-old club? It's like we have all these firsts. There's always another first for us to experience, and this is the first exodus of a designated player, the most valuable commodity in Major League Soccer.
Yeah, it's a great call, right? Because I think saying that it was a first, and by the way, I'm being tongue-in-cheek as far as what was happening. I tried to get away for 48 hours, and right. I couldn't stop, following my phone and following these stories. So for what it's worth, I've got a lot of thoughts on all this. I've been waiting to get together with you to have this conversation today, but I think you've kind of set the table here, Danny. I enjoyed to hear you on the Spaces conversation hosted by Level Up Luke, and I was great to see you do an episode as well with what was it, an Antonelli? Who was your
Jeff Attinella? Jeff Attinella, and he is a former teammate of David Bingham. Check that out on the YouTube. Also published to the audio only feeds this morning. That is such a great episode. I know we had all this drama going on, but that's one we had on the schedule. And I was like, wow, we have a scheduled interview with this guy that's a little off topic, but we lost these two designated players. But I was like, forget it. I'm not pushing this interview back. I got to talk to this guy. And that turned out to be a great conversation. It's sort of like side to what we're talking about here, but also applies. So find that on all the feeds for sure. Jeff Attinella, great guy.
I've seen you wave the flags at the Charlotte Independence matches. And this was you were waving the Charlotte Soccer Show flag for the last couple of days all over the place. Great column as well on our Substack too. So Danny, you've been all over this story. I really enjoyed your column about Karol Swiderski, the king without a crown.
I'm writing again, Johnny. I used to write all the time back in my early days of my career. I wrote column for the school paper back in college and stuff like that. So like, thank you for creating Charlotte Soccer City Substack as a platform for me to just like spill out my thoughts. You're a great man. You've given a great gift to the readers of Charlotte Soccer community and world, because like you and I are now able to like put our thoughts in the written form up there and stuff like that. So very cool. And it was great to like when Carol was the way it went is like Wednesday afternoon we start hearing, well, Carol might actually be going. We knew Jozwiak was going. But then Wednesday afternoon, it's like, oh, Carol might actually be going too. And I was like, whatever. That's not happening. And then a couple hours later, it's like, it's looking like it might actually kind of happen. And then like an hour after that, it was like, boom, it's real. It's happened. It's already happened. He's in the plane. So I didn't want to accept it at first, but then I got there and I was like, okay, it's real. It's happened. And then it's like, it's like the end of my day at work. It's in the evening and you're out of town. It's like normal circumstances. What's going to happen? You and I are going to like go straight to HopFly and like, let's get an episode in the can right now. But with you out of town, I didn't know what to do. So started putting thoughts on a page after the Twitter spaces that you mentioned. Thank you, Level Up Luke, for hosting. And I'm glad it came out. I got some really good response to the column, and that means the world to me because Carol meant the world to me as a soccer fan. And you have to move on, though. You can't get too attached. Like I have, my friend Bridget is like constantly, so sad about anytime George Marks isn't starting because that's like her favorite guy. I'm like, hey, you can't get too attached to these players. So I had to do the same thing to myself with Carol. My favorite guy is gone. So I had to sort of like put it out there, my negative emotions, while also processing the moving on forward. I'm the type of guy, I said this in the piece, I don't go through the stages one by one of grief. I just like to go through all the stages of grief simultaneously and just let it all hit me at once anytime something happens like this.
I could tell by the messages that we were trading that you were going through all those stages within a couple hours span, and it was a lot to handle for sure. And I'm so glad that we've been able to get together here on this Friday. And what's fun is that we typically don't record on Friday, so we're going to have our own version of Fresh Drop Friday on Charlotte Soccer Show. And you mentioned our friends at HopFly. Of course, this episode is presented by HopFly. And one thing I wanted to do is highlight this week's Fresh Drop Friday. There's one specific beer, Danny, that I think sounds perfect. You said it's a beautiful day in Charlotte. It's a beautiful day in Tampa here. And, I would kill for a creamsicle right now. This orange creamsicle blender, a Fresh Drop Friday, a beer at HopFly. Transport yourself back to carefree days with our orange creamsicle blender. This delightful concoction pays homage to the iconic orange creamsicle pop. Man, when I think about a creamsicle pop right now, I'm thinking about like a Saturday in July. We're getting ready to go to the Keep, and oh yeah, I would love to have a creamsicle pop on the walk down to the stadium. It delivers a vibrant blend of bright orange and luscious vanilla. It's a nostalgic journey that captures the essence of simple pleasures. Name a better duo? We'll wait.
Man, I love simple pleasures, man. I'm a simple man, I like simple things, like lollipops. But no, I'm headed to HopFly right after we finish taping this for my own orange creamsicle fresh drop. That sounds terrific.
It certainly does. So for on this episode, on this Fresh Drop Friday on Charlotte Soccer Show, the one thing that I wanted to do, and hearing you talk about all that, Danny, is just kind of identify the biggest story of the week, right? And it has to be Carol. It has to be Carol leaving. It's why you wrote about that, our first ever signing, the DP signing. And I think the question has to be asked, right? And I'll start here. Carol Swiderski leaving Charlotte FC, and you've already said that you don't expect him to come back. I think it's really important to note that the loan with an option to buy is contingent on his new Serie A club staying up in the first division. What happens if that club gets relegated?
Then he'll probably go to a smaller league. He'll probably go to we'll sell him then at that point to like Midtjylland in the Danish league, who had made an offer earlier or something like that.
Fair enough.
Or back to the Greek league, maybe.
So it's a 0% chance if that team gets relegated that Carroll's not returning to Charlotte in the summertime.
It's not an actual real world 0% chance. There certainly is a chance, but in my head, it's a 0% chance. Yes.
Yeah, I don't think that I disagree with you, but I think that if that club doesn't stay up and Charlotte FC hasn't added a designated player in the summertime, and the squad is playing really well, and Carroll doesn't have any other suitors, you probably should bring them back in that scenario. And
a new reinforcement for the campaign, we know as one we're familiar with.
Totally right. So I only bring that up just to keep that option open, right? I agree with you. I don't expect Carol Swiderski to play for Charlotte FC ever again, but I've seen crazier things happen, and I'm not afraid to leave that on the table and maybe see Carol back at the Keep over the summer. But at the same time, the club right now, Hellas Verona, I believe it is, that he's transferred to. I think the club is going to stay up, and I think Carroll's going to play a part in that. I think the reason why they brought him on board is to have Carroll on the pitch, score goals, and stay up. They're not in the relegation zone right now. They're only a few points off, but who knows? It'll be a fun story to follow, though. I think for Charlotte FC fans, this is the first opportunity for Charlotte FC fans to see a former player play in a top 5 European league. And I'm not the type of person, typically that would
Sergio
watch
Ruiz erasure, just horrible. just man. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there, but
Yeah, Sergio Ruiz does play in La Liga, but I mean, I'm not sure he has any business playing in the top 5 European league. And I know for a fact, Jozwiak does not have any business playing in the top 5 European
league.
Yeah,
they're teammates again. Yeah, we'll get to that eventually. Sorry, I had to jump in there just because otherwise the Sergio stands are going to come at me for not saying anything. So.
Yeah. Are there Sergio stands out there? There's people that really like Sergio Ruiz? I guess there is.
I can think of one.
Okay. Well, that's not none. So cheers to the one Sergio Ruiz stand out there. I think
here's what I want to say. Here's what I want to say, though. I just want to say this. I do want your thoughts, obviously, but I just want Hellas Verona fans in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. I want them to know, keep an eye on this guy, because I'm pretty sure he's going to show up and he's like, man, it's great here. I want to do things here. I want to help this club stay up. But, oh, man, it'd be great to play for Napoli, Oh, man, it'd be awesome to go to Dortmund or something like that, Carroll's just that guy that's never happy where he is. He's always looking for the next thing and what's next. And so, if you saw the publicity photos, when he went to Verona, and he almost had a grimace on his face the whole time. I never really caught a smile. So we'll see. I'm not here to badmouth my ex. It's not what I do, but I just am not sure it's all going to work out for him in Verona. And I think he's going to end up wondering why he took this move. I really believe so, but we'll see.
It's certainly a story that we're going to continue to follow here on Charlotte Soccer Show. This is not going to be the last time we talk about Karol Swiderski, because as this club grows, as important players continue to come in and out of the club, we have to keep tabs on whether the club made a good decision or whether they made a very poor decision. And I think how a player ends up in his career after leaving a club is sometimes reflective of front office decision. And there was a lot of decisions by the front office this week. And I just want to just kind of pat you on the back and pat our show on the back, because I think when you see the reaction from a lot of fans and the Charlotte FC fan base this week, anyone who was surprised by this hasn't listened to Charlotte Soccer Show for the last 3 months. Mm-hmm. And that's just the case. I mean, you can go back on our Twitter feed, you can go back on X, and you can see our segments that say the Polish Exodus ? And you can listen to us have a conversation on the show about how I vividly remember asking you, hey, are we going to have any Polish players left on our team by the time the season starts?
Yeah.
And the reason why I was asking that question was because all signs were kind of pointing that direction. Kamil Jozwiak was going to leave the club. So Basinski was already going to leave the club. And for me, and I made this point, when Karol Swiderski was training with David Pareba in Europe in the offseason, after Pareba left Crown Legacy, and Pareba was the captain for Crown Legacy last year, at that point I said Karol's picked his side. Karol's has no interest in being with Charlotte FC anymore, because Charlotte FC is clearly moving on from every Polish player that they've had. And it's not a countryman thing as far as Charlotte FC trying to get rid of
coincidental, but it does point out.
But the reason why, the reason why we had Polish players is because we signed Karol Swiderski, and we wanted to put countrymen around him. We wanted to make him feel at home. We wanted to have players that speak his language in and around the dressing room. I thought it was a really smart move by the front office to do that. And I said,
you always said that about Kamil.
For that reason.
You always said Kamil's on the team because he's best friends with the best player, and so that's why he's here. And you were right about that. You were proven extremely right about that, my friend. You deserve your credit for it.
Well, it's not about credit. It's just about the fact that we're following this team very closely, and it was really kind of easy to kind of see what the future was for this team, and the future is Patrick Kajima, and there's no doubt about that, and it's always been that for the last 6 months or so. So we can talk about Big Pat, and we can talk about what we know about him and how Karol Swiderski's move impacts Patrick Kajima and Dean Smith. But I think for me, the most important thing about Karol is I would argue that most people's relationship with Karol Swiderski isn't necessarily about his play on the field. I think that there's an emotional connection to
Mhm.
Karol Swiderski because he was our first,
Right. Yeah.
and you never forget your first. And it's somebody that had an impactful relationship with the fan base, and seeing Carol leave on loan, I think it's a time for fans to ask themselves, "Oh, is he not the player? Is he not the person that he thought he was, and or that we thought he was?" So for me, it's really disappointing that Karol Swiderski is loaned out, and that he's not going to continue his project here, because in soccer, Danny, you know this phrase, right? It's the ability to become a club legend, right?
Hmm.
And that's really when you ingratiate yourself to the fan base, and you make a decision that, hey, I want to be here, I want to play for this club, and I want to be remembered as a legend for this club. And I think Karol Swiderski was given the opportunity to be the first Charlotte FC legend, and he decided that he didn't want to be that. And I think that, to me, is the most disappointing thing about this, is that on that night when Karol Swiderski was unveiled, just a little over 2 years ago at Bank
You
of
were there.
America Stadium, I was there, and that was the thought that I had. I said, "Wow, this player could become our first club legend." And I think a really good example of a player that has played in the MLS in the past, that came from Europe, that I mentioned to you, I said his name was Sebastian Letou. Sebastian
Mhm.
Letou for the Philadelphia Union. When the Philadelphia Union launched its franchise, Sebastian Letou came from Europe, and he became a Philadelphia Union legend because he made his career there. He stayed there for a very long time, and Karol Swiderski had that opportunity. So, I mean, the interesting part about this is it kind of falls in line with what's happening at Tepper Sports and Entertainment, is that people leave. That's what this club is all about. I mean, everybody leaves this club,
Yeah.
and Enzo Capetti's probably next. Not you know, and you got to ask yourself, who's next after that, and who's next after that. I saw a great photo this week, Danny, of Dan Morgan and the new Panthers head coach
Dave
raising their
Canales,
hand.
Davey
Dave
Delph.
Canales raising their hand and saying hello to everybody who greeted them at Bank of America Stadium. And I thought the perfect caption for that picture was, "Raise your hand if you're up next to get fired." And that's how this business right now, Tepper Sports and Entertainment, is working. I think this organization is in big trouble. I think that that the Panthers are an unbelievable shit show, and I think that the fact that Charlotte FC is affiliated with the Panthers and affiliated with Tepper Sports and Entertainment means that the culture of those two organizations are now starting to happen at Charlotte FC. Is that, you know who's next up? Zoran Kraneta, Danny. He's the next man up to get fired at Charlotte FC. Because if you noticed, after Karol Swiderski's move was announced, when Kamil Jozwiak's move was announced, when no players were signing, everybody was looking towards Zoran and saying, what is Zoran Kraneta's future here at Charlotte FC? I am not saying that Zoran Kraneta doesn't deserve a long-term future here, but if the decisions that were made over the last month pan out, and 6 months from now it's the summertime and Charlotte FC is 13th, 12th in the East, you really got to ask yourself a question about whether Zoran Kraneta is the right man for this job.
100%, because it's not just about Zoran. There's just the dynamic of, think about any football club / NFL team / NBA team, especially. How often, if there's a general manager and they fire one coach and they fire another coach and they hire their third coach, who's the next guy to get fired? They don't fire the third coach. They fire the general manager who keeps hiring these bad coaches, right? So just in general, if you took all the specifics out of it, just in general, the GM, the sporting director, the chief soccer officer is the next head on the chopping block for sure, especially because he just got promoted to a fancier title. So I think that Zoran knows that. I think that you said a lot there, Johnny. I'm just reacting to everything you just said. I think that it's a little weird, right? Because I'm a Kool-Aid drinker. I've drunk the Kool-Aid. I am trusting the team. I am waiting back to see what happens. There's still 20 or so days till our first match. The windows are still open. There are players out there. So I'm the guy that's like, I want to believe. And everything we're hearing from the club is trust us, trust us. Whether it's people we talk to on the side, or whether it's people we talk to officially, whether it's, any people, whether it's stuff we read from people that we know, talking to other people, whatever the conversation is, the conversation centers around, don't worry, it's going to be okay. We're going to sign guys. The dominoes have to fall. We got to move them out to move them in. And it's like, okay, well, you waited till the last fucking day to move them out, and it's a lot harder to move them in now. So I'm the guy that's keeping the faith here. Faith is the belief in things not seen, but I'm not seeing it. And you can only tell me so many times to keep waiting and holding on and never do anything. So I actually believe we're recording this on a Friday. Like you said, it's midday. We might have signings by the time this episode could be semi-dated, because there could be signings by the time someone listens to it. But at the same time, I've now given up hope of a DP. I don't think there's any way we get a DP signing in this window. The whole
no chance.
The message is we don't want to rush it, so we might wait till summer. I mean, come on.
Yeah, we might wait. We might wait until Carroll gets relegated and force him to come back and finish out the season.
But for me, I was always 2 weeks ago, I was dead confident. I would have asked anyone who asked. I would have told anyone who asked me, we will sell Camille and we will bring in a new DP before the season starts. That was my mantra. I said it. Pin it to the chat. I said it multiple times, and I was wrong. We will not have a DP now. I'd be shocked if we did. Even though the idea that I hinted at earlier, the wild name that I would have loved to see come in is Saeed Ben Rama, who plays for West Ham. He's like a insane, pacey Premier League winger. Would be a huge swing to take for us to go get him, and he's kind of out of favor at West Ham. And so he almost moved to the French league to play at Lyon on the deadline yesterday, and that deal fell apart on some technicalities.
I got news for you. That deal's back on.
Okay, so that's not going to happen. But these are the type of leaps that I'm trying to find here as we're scrambling. And I assume the people in the office are doing way more than me. But we're not getting a DP, so we are going to get some signings. We're going to bring 1, 2, 3 guys in maybe in the next week and a half or so. It'll be too late for them to fully integrate with the squad at Coachella. They may not even have work visas by February 24th, but we'll sign them. And we'll see what happens, and we'll go into this thing. The only thing you can really do at this point is you have to, if you want to be that glasses full, not empty guy, you could say, and I'm prepared, I'm fully prepared for you to roast me on this, Johnny, but hey, man, we got a new manager, Dean Smith. Every player is a new signing.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, sure, you can think that way if you'd like, for sure. All these players are, they've got a chance to have the new manager bump, right? That's real. That's right. The new manager bump is real. And considering Dean Smith came in the off season, this first month of the season, through now we're officially in February now. Our first episode here in February that we're doing together, and we're looking towards February 24th against NYCFC, and it's only 22 days away from the time of this taping, which is insane. So we've got 3 weeks to prepare for that match. And right now there's 2 DP slots that are open. There's no right wing in this squad. The solution for the right wing is not there anymore. And yeah, I was going to ask you to bring up this depth chart that we took that you did a really nice job working on after both players have moved. And I just want to highlight a few things here, Danny. And I think that this is really important. And I think this is going to come off a little bit harsh, but it just is what it is. Enzo Capetti's just not that good. And right now he's our DP striker. He's the most important player on this team. And there's a guy who's, I believe, 24 years old, who makes about $65,000 this year, who is threatening our DP striker for his job. Mm-hmm. And that is a huge, huge problem for this club to start there. Yes, we have our DP striker in Enzo Capetti, but there's a young American player in Patrick Ajamong that looks to be pacier than Capetti, that looks to be just as good in the air as Capetti, and looks to be better with both feet than Enzo Capetti. I think the only thing that Enzo Capetti might have that Ajamong doesn't is hold-up play. I think hold-up play by Enzo Capetti might be the only way that he makes a real meaningful impact for this squad. So looking at that striker position, I'm a little bit concerned with the fact that Enzo Capetti, a player that slowed this offense down, that stayed on the ground way too long, that is the ultimate shithouser, right? He is somebody that I don't enjoy watching play soccer. And I'm just
they made a new rule to stop what he is most famous for doing. So you could call it the Capetti rule.
So we need to Enzo Capetti has to figure out a way to enjoy his football and have fans enjoy the football as well. If we have to watch another season of Enzo Capetti rolling around the ground and bitching to referees, then man, this is going to be a really, really long season. So I'm concerned about the striker position, and it's going to take a manager who's really confident in his decision making to sit Enzo Capetti on the bench. That's number one. Number two is, yes, you have something in pink here, which is potential rumored a new winger on that right hand side.
The pink slots on this depth chart are just like not signed, but just mentioned that they would be signed, which are these 3 spots here.
But who is going to come in at this point in the year and make an impact on the right wing? Is it somebody like a Justin Miram? Is it? I'm not saying him, but is it somebody like that, an MLS veteran player that comes in on the right wing and really helps this team in the attacking final third, right? It really hurts that Ben Bender is injured right now and can't slot into that space, even though I hate Ben Bender on the wing anyway. I very much prefer him in the center of the pitch. So Breck Diagre is the guy there on the right wing, but
he's also our 10. I also have Diagre in the 10.
Right.
By default.
I have to say,
because who else do you put there?
Yeah. When you sent me this depth chart and I took a look at it, I really started to get concerned.
Sure.
I did.
I'm concerned about the empty spots. Like, I'm fine with who we got. I know you just, everything you said about Capetti, I get. I still am, because I'm a Kool-Aid drinker, I'm like, Capetti's going to thrive now that he's the man. But we'll see. You could very well he could turn out to be a disaster still. I mean, that's not off the table. So, the midfield, I don't even know. Like, I know Bender doesn't really go here as the 8 in this third string 8, but I don't really think he's this backup left wing necessarily. So, like, but I don't know where to put this guy because he's hurt. Berkimas is not going to be on the first team. Berkimas is 15 years old. I mean, he's not going to be our third string left wing. So, like, that's got to change. But I didn't know who else to put there. I've got Tiger Smalls in the third right wing spot because Dino apparently really liked his effort in Florida, and he got a pre-assist. Other than that, like, he's not going to be playing Tiger Smalls, I don't think. So, like,
well, let me just jump in here and just say that this lineup that you have is not sustainable. They cannot play this formation. They can't.
Yeah,
they don't have the players to play this formation. They don't have wingers to have a 3-man front line. So, in my opinion, Patrick Ajman and Enzo Capetti need to play together as strikers.
Right.
Up top.
Even though supposedly Dean's not really a 2-striker guy, but he's got to find a way to make Ajman and Capetti work together one way or another. What about Capetti right wing? Ajman on top. No way? That's
no way. No, Capetti has no clue how to play on the right wing. Right. Have you ever seen him cross a ball into the box his entire career? He's the one that's on the end.
One time I saw it. One time I did see it.
Yeah. You know what's interesting though, and I mean this sincerely, is that when I talked to Patrick Ajman's college coach over the offseason, and I learned about his career at Rhode Island and the type of player that he was, he mentioned how Patrick Ajman liked to be out on the wing. That Ajman liked to hit balls into the box, and he was a better passer than he gave credit for, and he was a really pacey player. But it's a real stretch to put him on the wing. So ultimately, what I'm trying to say is, and I don't want to get into the weeds here with the formation. It's a big week. We're going to react to the fact that we lost Carroll. And,
it's really more about the depth. I mean, whatever the formation is, there's empty spots all over the pitch.
Right. And from a sub, let's just think about it this way, right? If it's 2-1 in the 65th minute, like, who is Dean Smith asking to come off the bench as an impact sub? I think Scott Arfield is somebody that we could circle as that. Yep. But who else?
Cambridge.
Tiger Smalls? Cambridge is injured.
Yeah, that's true.
There's just no depth in the attacking third on the bench whatsoever. And without Ben Bender there, without any other right winger without Kamil Jozwiak as well. I'm not saying that Kamil should be on this team. It just seems like
he's not.
I've got to say, I mean, we were told, oh, Dean Smith really likes Tiger Smalls, right? Good, great. Let's see what Tiger Smalls can do in this lineup. I don't hate that, but I mean, come on, this kid was just drafted out of college, and if in the third year of this club's existence, we're going to draft somebody out of college and start playing him right away, I start asking myself, what in the hell is going on here? There is no reason for a super draft pick, who, by the way, was Tiger Smalls the first round pick or the second round pick?
He was our first round pick, yeah.
Okay, well, there's a reason why he was the first round pick. And I'm not trying to be negative on this show, Danny. I'm just trying to have a real conversation.
Yeah. Oh, you know who I need to put in? You know who I forgot to put in? Who's definitely going to be there? Pekovic, yeah. Whew. I knew I was forgetting someone the whole time I made this. Whew. Looks a little better. It looks a little better. It looks a little bit better now.
Okay, yeah, but it doesn't address the fact that in the final 15, 30 minutes of the match, no doubt, when you need an impact player off the bench, there's literally nobody there right now, and that's where the signs are coming. We're going to sign players, right? And that's going to happen here in the next, hopefully, a couple days, couple weeks, and there's going to be players who could potentially come in, but another Justin Meram type signing is the most unenthusiastic signing I can think of. Yeah.
And then you get to the back line and you're like, what's going on here? It's crazy. So
I think you're being a little harsh to Andrew Privet. I think Andrew Privet is somebody that could start at that left center back role if necessary. I think Guzman Carujo could start there as well. We know that Dean Smith wants a left-footed center back to pair with an Adilson Malanda, with a Guzman Carujo. So the nice thing is that there at center back, there's enough players to maybe find a center back partnership that can get the job done, and just kind of fall into what that partnership looks like and how they work with Christian Kalina and go from there. And I think ultimately, I'm starting to look at this squad, Danny, and I think our fullback positions, potentially might offer us the best opportunity to play forward. I think sending Nathan Byrne and Jalen Lindsey and Yuri Urinen forward and helping this team in the final third wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. I also don't think a back three would be the worst thing in the world. Yeah. I'm not expecting Dean Smith to play a back three, but if the back three was Bill Tuiloma, Andrew Privet, and Adilson Malanda, and then Lindsey was in a wingback position and Yuri Urinen was in a wingback position. Ultimately, I think those two could bomb forward, and they could also pinch back and play a back five.
How about Byrne playing your attacking right wing?
I mean, have him bomb forward. I mean, he's got we know how much pace he has, right? His track back ability.
Byrne really became a key player at the end of last year for sure.
I agree. So this is ultimately what I'm trying to say. Is that I believe that the left and the right back position are the strongest positions that we have at Charlotte FC right
now. Yeah, I'll buy it after losing Carroll for sure. A striker, and I'd put striker there as second, right behind those two. Everywhere else, I don't know. I'm huge on Westwood. I think it's a great year for Westwood. I think Westwood takes a quantum leap forward offensively in year 2 in MLS compared to what he did in year 1. We'll see if I'm proven right or wrong on that. Vargas, I think, takes a quantum leap forward. I think protect Kerwin Vargas at all costs. We have him here as left wing, but I really think of him as just sort of an all-purpose offensive playmaker. I think he's going to have the ball at his feet even more this year. So, but it depends who you bring in.
Right, and I think you're making really nice points about this midfield situation, right? Where you've got an Ashley Westwood, you've got a Brant Bronico, you've got players who have played together and players that know how to connect with each other. And if there's a way to win a midfield battle in MLS this year, that can maybe make up for some of your deficiencies up front. And if the midfield can retain possession, play this possession style, I think that would be ultimately the way for Charlotte FC to go forward, is if this midfield can really play together. But I need to be honest with you, Danny. After the New York Red Bulls loss in the playoffs, my first thought was the midfield was not good enough.
Yeah.
And that midfield will never be good enough to win an MLS Cup.
And it hasn't gotten better. Yeah.
When you look at this lineup, I think it's just my expectations for the season have drastically changed. What am I excited about? I'm excited about Patrick Ajiman. I'm excited about young players. I'm excited about Ben Bender. I'm excited about Kerwin Vargas, right? Why not try to be excited right now about Tiger Smalls? If Dean Smith says he likes Tiger Smalls, that's amazing. And let's just see what he has. But other than that, I mean, of course, Scott Arfield. I want Scott Arfield to start bagging some goals. I think he's going to bag goals this year. I wouldn't be surprised if Scott Arfield stays healthy. I wouldn't be surprised to see him score 8 to 12 goals in MLS this season.
Hopefully, another game winner or two for sure.
Right.
Scott Arfield scores important goals. That's very much.
That's correct.
Yeah,
and that's why I designated him as a super sub, right? And the other thing that is popping up right now as I'm having this conversation with you. And again, I'm not trying to be super negative. I'm trying to be realistic. And I've kind of seen a lot of people in and around Charlotte FC kind of toe the company line this week. I wanted to get your take on that, Danny. It seems like there's a message that is being communicated to people who cover the club, whether they're in supporters groups, whether they're part of Right Shoulder Broadcasting, that are very positive about the fact that this opens up a roster flexibility. This opens up financial flexibility. And for what it's worth, I am one of the people, Danny, that says, yes, these outgoings were important. And yes, it does open roster flexibility. But with that comes now responsibility to make the next decision. Right. So you have to make a decision here in the next month or so with these open spots. And I think the under 22 initiative roster spot is really important right now.
Yeah. And is it really opening flexibility if you waited till the last day of the window to do the business? I'm with you in terms of I would have liked, I was willing to give Dean some time when he first got here, but like 6 weeks later, it's like you couldn't find one guy out there that you would have wanted to be your designated player to replace Jozwiak, whether you knew Carroll was leaving or not right away. So that's unfortunate because he clearly had moved. He clearly ruled Camille out very early in this process. So I know the whole thing is they don't want to rush into it. And the club is definitely like circling the wagons, like you lose 2 DPs and don't bring anybody in. You got to circle the wagons. And so like, I get it. Like everyone who cares about this club is invested in this club. Like it's preseason. If this is summer window and we're like outside a playoff position and this happens, then it's set the house on fire, throw everything out the windows and run. Like I agree, but it's preseason. We're 0-0 on the table. We're in first place theoretically. So like I can totally understand the impulse, and maybe I'm just saying this to excuse the fact that I'm doing it myself. But like again, Kool-Aid drinking and all is a natural reaction right now. I really think so. I don't want to think negative things about my club. I'm not going to be someone who's like, that fucking Zorn, the Tepper, the fucking you can make like critiques, like informed critiques, and you've said some things that like make sense, but I do think there's a strain in the fan base that like just wants to like MF these guys with no real factual backing or anything, and just be like there's people who really think that we're not out there trying to sign players, and it's like, you really think they're just chilling in the office playing ping pong doing nothing? I mean, they're desperately trying to sign players. It's not easy, and you don't want to make a mistake. What's the one thing we keep hearing from everyone we talk to? We don't want to rush into another DP like we did with Camille. Everyone knows that Camille Jozwiak was a mistake. And you used one of your most brilliant leveraging chips. The most powerful thing that an MLS franchise has is that designated player spot. And we wasted one on Jozwiak, so that hamstrung us for 2 seasons. And so I get that like flexibility is got a lot of people excited. It doesn't do much for me because it's really about what you do with it.
Yes, and that's totally fair. But I think, Camille Jozwiak was injured. Enzo Campetti was injured. There's been a lot of injuries as well. So I think you can make the argument that we really didn't get to see. We really haven't seen either of those players at their top level of fitness making an impact over a long stretch of time. I think that is something that we're in the midst of right now. I think we're potentially in the middle of an injury crisis. With Ben Bender, with Brandon Cambridge, specifically on the wing
Marks
positions. George Marks, I didn't realize that. That's news to me today as we're recording that. George Marks is a bit injured. I don't think that's an issue, but at the same time, I think if I were to just give you my honest opinion, and I'm happy to be wrong on this, is that my expectations for year 3 have drastically changed in the last 2 weeks. And the reason why I feel that way is because my expectations were to compete for a playoff position spot and to try to win a trophy this season. And now when I'm thinking about what realistically I'm looking forward to, I think what realistically fans should be looking forward to, it should be to learn about players. Right? This is a trial for Enzo Capetti. Mm-hmm. This is a trial for Patrick Agyemang. This is a trial for Kerwin Vargas. This is a trial for Tiger Smalls. All of these players, it's like every game's a cup game, right? Let's just play the young guys and see what happens. So it's a total roll of the dice, and that's why I'm happy to be wrong, right? It's because we're rolling the dice out there, and we're saying we've got young players, we really like them. Let's see how they do in MLS, and I am totally on board with that. I actually, and I'm sorry that it's taken me so long to get to this point. I am 100% on board with that. I want to see young players, and I think it was the biggest issue, Danny, in Christian Latanzio's tenure at Charlotte FC, is that he didn't give these young players time. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, we're going into the season really not knowing what we have. Maybe we know what we have in Kerwin Vargas, right? I think maybe he's the one guy that we know what we have. Yeah. But everybody else, it's projecting because the minutes aren't there. I don't consider Bronico a young player.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant. I didn't realize you were talking about just young players. Sorry, I thought you meant.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Players. As far as just like rolling the dice out. I mean, right. We could get. This is my point. Is like we could get really lucky this season. Patrick Agyemang's really good. Kerwin Vargas is really good. Tiger Smalls is a diamond in the rough, and he's making an impact for this squad. Ben Bender comes back healthy, and he's cooking in the midfield. Andrew Privet has become a better center back. Edilson Malanda has become a better center back. At those young positions, right? Obviously, what
a great 8-leg parlay you're rolling out here for us to hit on. This is beautiful.
Like that's ultimately what we need to figure out here in this next 2 months, and it's so interesting. There's so much happening here with Charlotte FC, and it's fascinating to me that the season starts in 3 weeks.
I feel like we had this conversation literally a year ago this time when you were dramatically resetting your expectations for the season. Because we were supposed to buy Camille down and bring in a new DP last winter, and we didn't, excuse me. So maybe that's just to become a ritual for us at this point. But yeah, it's what you're describing sounds like something I could get behind because I like watching young players too. But that's very, very, very different from what Joe and Zoran and Dean were all saying 6 weeks ago when Dean was brought in and the talk was win the MLS Cup.
Oh yeah, but they also said patience, right? So
and they also said Dean's great with young players. They said his young players are Dino's specialty.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think we are. What we're doing is we're seeing Dean Smith come into this club, and he's saying, I want young guys. I want to work with young players. I want to bring them along. I want to train them to work in my system. And I want Ashley Westwood and I want Scott Arfield to show these guys how to be professionals. And
preseason.
That's right. And I think the biggest outlier in all this is Enzo Capetti. I think for me, Enzo Capetti is I have no clue what to expect from Enzo Capetti this season, Danny. And when we talk about rolling the dice too, he's the person that's supposed to be he's going to be the tip of the spear.
I think that's why we heard talk. That's why there were even whispers on deadline day of even Enzo potentially leaving. And I don't think there was anything real to that, but just the fact that there were whispers is reflective of the fact that he's not the perfect fit. Like you said, like even he doesn't really fit, but it's just like, we can't get rid of all 3 DPs. We can't do that. Right. That would have been absurd. So it's like, we kind of have to keep him, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him if it doesn't work out, if he doesn't freaking get up off the ground and quit complaining and quit whining and start bagging goals on the regular. Summer's not that far away.
I didn't make a big deal about this, but I thought it was, and it's not Enzo Capetti's fault at all. So I'm not placing blame on him whatsoever.
Wow.
And I think secondarily to this, when Enzo Capetti went to MLS Media Day this year, that's when everybody should have known that Karl Swiderski won't be on this team, because Karl Swiderski was the person that went last season. He represented the club, and he was happy to do so. And he didn't go again this year. It was Enzo Capetti who went. So it was a bit of a sign there that Enzo was kind of stepping into that role. And then when Enzo was at MLS Media Day, I'm sure there's some content about him talking about Charlotte FC. But you know what made news? His people asking him about River Plate. People asking him about playing in Argentina. The only quotes that came out of Enzo Capetti from MLS Media Day were about River Plate and how his family wants him to be playing at River Plate, and how that would be an amazing thing for his family, but how he doesn't really think that's possible right now, and that he's committed to Charlotte FC, which I respect.
Right.
But
and there was never any follow-up of, well, why are you committed to Charlotte FC? Why do you enjoy it there? It was just like, okay, we trust you. It sucked.
Yeah. The new manager's cleaning house, Danny. That's what's happening. I mean, this is right.
Yeah, but that's frustrating for fans who've been told this guy came in to win the cup. It's really like, and then all of a sudden now we like a month later we're being told prepare for a rebuilding year. I'm not into that. But
I feel like I'm prepared for it because they talked about patience. They talked about playing young players. They talked about really starting and working from the ground up and building a fan base and building a reputation here and connecting with the fan base with this new style of play. And I think things will be direct, but I think it's going to be really difficult. I think Dean Smith is in for a very interesting start to the season. And I think that game against New York City FC, that first game of the season, obviously is really important. But then the 3 games after to follow on the road, those games are really as important as well. So, I just think it's really nice to sit here and rally around a guy like Patrick Agyemang, to rally around a young player like Kerwin Vargas, and rally around a young player like Ben Bender and Pekovic as well. And we have to kind of look towards them as the future of this club, because it feels like we are in a bit of a transition period right now.
Well, let's take it full circle here as we start to wrap up. And I just want to going back to, the article, the column on Soccer City Substack, the whole metaphor that I tried to draw out with Carroll was, the king, King Carroll. That was our nickname for him on the show, from the very beginning. And it's like, but what is the difference between a crown that is just bestowed upon you and a crown that you have to go win, right? That was what I wanted to explore in that column. And we gave Carroll the crown. It was a royal decree. Karol Swiderski is our king, and we elevated him to the throne without him ever having done it. And like you said this so great, Johnny, he never truly appreciated the opportunity, because how could you truly appreciate something that you didn't have to go earn? So I think as much as I enjoyed watching Carroll play and wanted him to be a talisman of that club, there was always that lingering back in my mind, he doesn't really seem like he loves it here. Like he doesn't love us like we love him. And that always did kind of sting a little bit. So now it's like, we're looking for that king, a new type of king. We're looking for that sword in the stone king, that king that's going to go out there and claim a throne, that's going to go win a battle to earn the position, to earn the throne. And it's clumsy metaphor maybe, but I do just enjoy it. And I just think that who is going to be our, King Arthur, who's actually going to go be someone who takes the kingdom to new heights and craves the opportunity and doesn't want to be anywhere else. And I don't think that person is Enzo Capetti, based on everything you just said.
Well, it feels like it's not. We've seen a season with Enzo Capetti. It did not work out. He was certainly a lightning rod within the fan base. I think he has people that love him within the fan base, and I think there's people that despise him within the fan base. And that in and of itself isn't a good sign. You want to rally around your players, and you want to make sure everybody's on the same page.
It might be Patrick Agyemang.
It is. I think everybody wants to rally around Patrick. I think that is 100% true. And I think that's something I've identified as a clear positive for this club. And there's not many right now, and that's a bit of an issue, because when you think about goals, right? it's so sometimes I feel like we make things more complicated than they are when you're covering soccer, and because goals are really the name of the game, and not to
Mhm.
insult anybody and their intelligence, but what if you could bring that depth chart up one more time? It's like,
Sure.
where are the goals coming from? They're coming from Enzo Capetti, they're coming from Patrick Agyemang, and they're coming from Kerwin Vargas, Ben Bender, Brecht Diagra. He hasn't shown, like, he's shown me the ability to score a worldie, right? The
Mhm.
scorpion kick, a worldie goal, but he hasn't shown me the ability to consistently score goals in the MLS. Scott Arfield, the goals are coming from there as well. So where are these goals coming from is my question. And they're not coming off the bench. There's just not a lot of goal scorers here on this roster.
Yeah. Diagra's going to have to become a playmaker. I mean, he showed flashes last year, and he really had a tough spot of kind of parachuting into a situation where it was just like running at full speed from the moment he got here. I really hope that with an off season under Dino and a full training camp, that he's going to take a quantum leap forward, even, just as much as some of the other guys I talked about with Westwood and Vargas. But yeah, when it comes to goals, it's Vargas and Agyemang and Westwood on this page for me, and Arfield off the bench. Westwood, he scored a worldie last year, the absolute stunner golazzo, and he also scored some pretty nice little cutter chipper type stuff. Westwood's the only guy on this page who scores like goals that no one else could score is Westwood for me. So
It's interesting. And just for fun, I think at the end of this episode, I want to make a bold prediction, just kind of everything that's happened this week, like not really knowing if these new signings are coming here over this weekend and in the next couple of weeks. They will, for sure. And there'll be players added to this club, and hopefully we can come back on the show and
John,
say, they got it right.
Their names are new winger, new backup six, and new LCB. Those are the three guys we're going to sign right now. Yeah.
Looking at the East and thinking about the league, I think right now I would rank Charlotte FC's roster as either the second worst or the worst roster in the Eastern Conference.
Let's go sign some guys and fix that.
I mean, even if they do sign people in these next 3 weeks, it's going to be tough to fix that. I'm just saying, look at right. We talk so much about Charlotte FC on this show, right? And that's all well and good. But when you compare the roster to a Miami roster, a Nashville roster, a Cincinnati roster, a Columbus roster, a Chicago roster, an Atlanta roster, New York Red Bulls roster, it just feels like we are miles behind those clubs right now from a player point of view, from a depth point of view. And again, this, I'm not trying to say that our players suck. I'm just saying that we don't have enough.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just that simple. It's there's just not enough.
You said it. I'm with you. Let's fix it. Fix it, Zoran. Fix it, baby.
It needs to be fixed now, because I've heard the spin. I've
participated in the spin. Let's be honest. I'll call myself out.
No, I mean, I don't think you have. I think you've been.
I'm trying to be legit. I hope people feel like I'm authentic always, but I'm a positive
100%.
guy.
100%. Yeah, and I think maybe during this episode, it's kind of I haven't for me personally, and I think towards the end of the show. So that's everyone who's still hanging out here. I appreciate you being here on this episode, and this is when the good stuff is at the end of the episode. Always, I've been busy. I've had some career stuff going on. I've been down here. I've been not really been able to fully, I guess, comprehend what's happened with this club over the last couple of days, and I think the last 57 minutes right now I've poured my emotions out there. I've poured my emotions out there, and I think that it's all hitting me right now that I'm so happy that Dean Smith is a manager of this club. I'm glad that he's cleaning house, but it's really, really tough to feel like this squad is going to win something this year in year 3, and it's already year 3, and I was hoping to win something in year 1.
You said it. I couldn't say it any better.
It's Charlotte Soccer Show. I'm John Hayes. He's Danny Brams. We're presented by HopFly, of course. Make sure you circle your calendars. March 2nd. We've got an incredible away day party scheduled. I'm glad we're playing Vancouver because Vancouver usually is not very good. So that first away day of the season, we can play Vancouver and maybe get an away win, start the season with 6 points. That would be really cool. And we can go back and listen to this episode, and Patrick Ajamong scores, 4 goals in the first 2 games. And this episode will go down in infamy as one of the worst episodes of Charlotte Soccer Show history. But for now, I hope you enjoyed the episode. Danny, it's always great to see you. Can't wait to get back to Charlotte. Can't wait to potentially hang out this weekend and get with you again next week. And we've got a game on Wednesday.
Yep.
Charlotte FC versus LA Galaxy on Wednesday at Coachella. I believe that game's in the afternoon, like a 1 o'clock game or something like that, or 1:30, 2 o'clock. You have it on the schedule somewhere. So make sure you stick around here. We're going to have a reaction to that game here. It's going to be really interesting to see
what we do,
who Dean Smith lines up in that match in Coachella. So I appreciate everybody watching. Appreciate everybody listening to the show. And as always, Danny,
for the crown, baby.